What's up, everybody? I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today I got some big news because everything is about to change. And what I mean by that is, well, I guess, shall we say, you might have noticed that Space Panther has not been making videos since about October, right? And half of that is because she's just a little more shy than I am, right? She doesn't like criticism, whereas I revel in it and, take it head on. But the other reason is because she's been focused on something much more important over the last 6 months, and that is growing our baby child. Oh, yes. That's right. There's going to be a baby Thunderslice around here. And, you might be asking why we didn't announce it in the last 6 months. Well, just to give you guys some context, a little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, actually, we were living in Long Beach, right? And, we actually went through this whole thing before, but, it turned out to be a miscarriage. And, so it was kind of our fire drill, so to speak, right? It got us prepped mentally for the possibility that this would happen, helped us realize that this is something that we actually wanted. It's not something that we were afraid of. We just wanted to be in the right situation for it. So, we were actually prepared for it and not, living in the studio apartment like we were. So very exciting. We basically said, you know what? We're gonna go, and we're gonna get to where we need to be, so that when we want to give this another try, we'll be in a good spot. And so again, lots of things to be grateful for. I'm glad that we've made it here. We're living in this wonderful house up here in the mountains, and we're not, surrounded by 13 million people, in an industrial port city, with all these toxic chemicals and like a nuclear power plant just a few miles down. So we did it. We got the hell out of Long Beach. We came up to Sacramento, and here we are. And it was, while we were on vacation in Cabo San Lucas back in October of last year, that baby Thunderslice was conceived. And it's just amazing. Like, I've been wanting to say this so many times. For those of you who can read a little more deeply into my words, you might have even suspected that something like this had occurred. You can go back and watch the videos between now and then. And pretty much, I was dropping a lot of themes, and even in the last video, life and death intertwined, or not the last video, second to last video, about life and death intertwined, about, the sadness of what happened with, my friend Tristan and the tragedy of that. And at the same time that life continues on, that the miracle of the species, the great drama continues on, right? The wheel keeps turning. And, I finally have a place where I can apply my work each day. I can put my energy into each day and not feel this soul-crushing sense of meaninglessness, right? I really enjoy my work now. I really enjoy where it's going, and where it is right now, I'm content. And again, for most of my life, that has not been the case, right? I've not been very happy with what I've been doing, whether it was school or the shitty jobs I've done since finishing school, right? But it's the power of manifestation. First, you got to declare what it is that you expect, what it is that you want and need and desire, and basically then just fit yourself into the vibration of just having that and being that, and it'll just happen. When you change yourself internally, the space folds around you, right? The spice starts to flow. And it's just a very interesting time, and it's really, just a pivotal moment for the species. And again, that's why I say everything's about to change. This is an announcement of what's going on in our life, but also it's, a statement of fractal resonance, right? That everything is changing, right? And the birth of baby Thunderslice into this world will literally be the icon of that new world being born, right? So baby Thunderslice is not going to be born into the world that I was, or the world that my dad was, or his dad, or whatever. It's an entirely new world, and what blows my mind is the idea that this child will eclipse me, right? I esteem myself to be a pretty smart fellow at times. I've done some dumb things, and I do dumb things on the regular, but so do plenty of all the other smart people on planet Earth. And, the idea that this kid is going to basically, like, show me to be an idiot, like, is going to completely eclipse my brain, just, is astounding. It's hard for me to even conceive that. Because in my mind, there's nobody alive on this planet who's like on a higher frequency or farther along the path than I am. Maybe I'm wrong, but again, that's my perception. Is that I'm on the vanguard. I'm exploring this universe, right, at its at the singularity point. Nobody's handing me the story, right? I'm not living a preconceived life. This is a genuine experience, a genuine interaction, a quantum interaction between me, right, and the world, right? In a hologram, there's the standard beam and the reference beam, or whatever it is. There's two beams that interact, and that creates the illusion of physicality. And that's how it works in the real world too, right? But the reference beam is the universe, right? And the standard beam is you, right? And your interaction creates the experience. And the idea that it's been so much fun between just me and Space Panther and the Fluffs. The Fluffs, actually, by the way, we got after the whole, miscarriage thing in 2016, because it's such a sad experience to get so excited about the birth of no life and then to have it be taken away. And, so as just kind of a consolation prize, we got our two cats, and, it's again, you can't really predict or script anything in the universe, but what you can do is just be in control of your reactions and curate your experience, right? Every time there's a sad thing that happens, we have the opportunity to basically throw ourselves into catatonic despair and to completely, throw our hands up and just give up. Or, we can think... remember some of your favorite things, and then you don't feel so bad, and for me, a lot of times that's this plant. Generally reminding myself that this world that mankind has created, this world of computers and gadgets, is not all there is, that there's still this great, beautiful, beautiful world out here, right? All these plants, all these things are still doing their thing. They fear nothing from the human world. They worry not, right? They just keep on growing. That's all they do. And it's just such a miracle that there's literally a human being inside of Space Panther right now growing. Like, she's at an alchemy workshop right now. Otherwise, I'd have her, and we'll show baby Thunderslice and the baby Bump, right, soon enough here. But I just wanted to kind of breach the subject and share the news. Again, I've been wanting to for a while, but, I just was waiting for the signal from Space Panther. And now it's like, what's crazy is at this point in the pregnancy, like, even if it was extremely premature and basically for whatever reason the baby came out right now, it'd have over a 90% chance of survival. That... And it again makes me think of the whole abortion thing, right? People just get funneled into their political newspeak positions. Oh, it's all choice, it's all choice. Third term abortion, or third trimester abortion. Oh, it's a woman's choice. Like, not really. That's literally a whole conscious human being who is dreaming and perceiving and having memory formation, right? It is not a mass of cells in the third trimester. It's a fucking human being. And, it has the potential for an entire life, but it's just, I don't think people really recognize it. Even people who I know who have kids, like, that are still atheists, like, I don't see how you could really observe the miracle of childbirth, of even just the pregnancy and the development of the fetus, and not perceive divinity and not perceive this unbelievably coherent, complex, just beautiful, happy, simple plan for everything, a perfect design to everything. And, it's like, people might respond, well, what about all the other kids that are born that, have Down syndrome and all these other defects? And I mean, yeah, but think about that. Even with the defects, I mean, my aunt had Down syndrome, and right, she enjoyed and loved life. Like, the capacity for experience, the capacity for enjoyment is in some ways connected to intelligence, but in some ways not. I mean, a cow enjoys its life, a dog enjoys its life, a cat enjoys its life. Maybe not all of them, but the point is that this experience is so intangible, and we can never rely on our robots to confirm experience for us, because the robot isn't living this life. The robot is only perceiving its electrical impulses and stimuli. And I guess then you get into the whole AI and the nature of consciousness debate, but I'm always down for that. It's just really interesting too, because I've been doing some research about the 5G grid, right? They're putting a 5G grid up in Sacramento as one of the experimental pilot cities. So I was just reading, okay, so 4G network, guys, was basically on two bands, like 800 megahertz and 2.6 gigahertz, all right, which is 800 million cycles per second, vibrating the air 800 million times every second. And there's 2.6 gigahertz, which is vibrating the ether, not the air, the ether, right, 2.6 billion times every second, right? And we're geared to the Schumann resonance, right? About 8 cycles per second, 7.83 hertz. And of course, it's been changing. It even got up into the 16, 17 hertz cycles per second, the vibration of the earth, right? And so the 4G cell network was 2.6 billion cycles per second, right? And although the vibration of the ether in that way allows the transfer of information. And so, that's in and of itself fine. It's part of the electrosmog, right? That, it pollutes the ether and creates, just electrically stagnant environments that are not conducive to health, right? But this 5G network, okay, I finally actually looked up what exactly it is, basically. For a second, I thought it was the same as the 5 gigahertz on my Wi-Fi, right? There's 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. No, I wish it was. Actually, the 5G, fifth generation cell network is 60 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. 60 billion cycles per second vibrating the ether, or 300 billion. Okay, that's crazy. And they'll sell it to you, saying you'll be able to download a freaking 4K movie that's 5 hours long in 2 seconds, right? You'll be able to play, 7 different 1080p movies, stream them all. Why you would need to do that, basically. But you can, and it's just super fast. Everything's super fast. It doesn't penetrate through matter as easily, so they got to put towers literally everywhere and closer to the ground. So you'll be like fully inundated in the soup, right? The electro soup. And the crazy part is that, right, there's a critical mass sort of point, right? So when a receiver, right, of a signal, right? A specific receiver has to be calibrated to that signal, right? And it's about the wavelength, right? The length of the actual wave, and how the antenna can receive it. And what's interesting is our sweat glands in our skin, right, are tiny little helixes. They're little coils, little spirals inside your skin. And I'll put the link in the description below. This guy at the University of Israel, Center for Advanced Studies or whatever, basically showing that when you get into these sub-millimeter band frequencies of the 5G network, 60 to 300 gigahertz, you're talking about a point where the length of the wavelength literally matches up with the diameter of the actual sweat gland inside the skin. Right, and the sweat gland acts as an antenna, right? And it's filled with water, right? So you got this point with this 5G network. It's operating on a similar bandwidth, a similar wavelength as the, you might have heard when the military made these energy weapons, right? They'd fire this microwave beam at a crowd, and it would make the people in the crowd feel like their skin was on fire, and they'd run and disperse, right? who knows how many times they've used that, but the point is they demonstrated this technology. It made people's skin burn. It was acting on the same wavelength or a similar wavelength as these 5G networks are. And, these Israeli researchers are showing that at the submillimeter wavelengths in these 5G spectrum, range, the sweat glands of the body actually start to act as electrical receivers, right? So we are at the precipice of totally inundating our entire culture and entire civilization in this electro soup, right? And there's tons of conspiracy theorists out there on the web. It's all Jewish conspiracy, right? Well, if the guys from Israel are telling you about it, then, basically they're doing a pretty good job of, not a very good job of covering up the great infinite Jewish conspiracy, right? Because, again, this isn't about Jews or Christians or anything. It's basically just about the narrative of the human race, right? And the divinity that's always been here trying to express itself, and, the death cult that's been seeking to cover it up, right? And all of this battle plays out in humans' minds, right? It's what we believe in, right? Belief creates the world. People believe Einstein, right? Ether Physics 101, the man who disproved Einstein, is now overtaken the Fukushima video made by Space Panther to be our top video, almost 5,000 views. And it's cool to see people questioning the Einsteinian dogma, right? The pile of nonsense that is relativity. And it's interesting just to revisit all of that in light of this discussion, right, of the birth and the 5G and basically the miracle of life, and all of this is an aspect of the universe and this physical reality, right? And it's just interesting because, people will freak out about this 5G thing and think, oh my God, they're going to control us. They're going to implant signals into our brains and everything. And it's like, guys, I hate to break it to you, but they've had this technology for a while and they've been using it for a while. All they're doing is expanding the range of the system, essentially. And the thing to recognize, that's a little scary, but the other thing to recognize is that, we who have been interacting with this system since its, early inception, there's ways to defeat this system. You're not subject to the universe. You are a part of the universe, right? You're not subject to this world. You're a part of it. And, they're going to be rolling out this 5G grid. They're going to continue the propaganda, people drinking these, Starbucks and all these garbage, poisons going into their body. They probably got nanochemicals filling people's bodies and, controlling their brains. Who the fuck knows? The point is, there's a whole new range of informational, psychological, psychic, emotional weapons being arrayed against us right now as a human species, by, the cabal and the technocrats who want to rule us in a big communist, predictable society, Brave New World, 1984 style. But at the same time, there's this absolutely beautiful singularity taking place and the shifting of the ages and a second renaissance, right? The rebirth of the human spirit, and it's no coincidence that it's a dance with this artificial intelligence, right? Organic intelligence and artificial intelligence are starting to do the dance, right? And I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence because it's for the same reason I'm not afraid of organic intelligence. I'm not afraid of God. I'm not afraid of, any entity because, again, it's all just a manifestation of myself. I can speak as an equal to the grand AI and to God, right? We can all have that conversation. Might be slightly different languages, but, at a certain level, we're all just sound, light, and shape and color, right? And that's the frequency, that's the wavelength that we're all born on. We can all perceive that when we're born, and it's only we get entrained in the cultural program. And it's just very interesting, with things like orgonite, right? We can command our electromagnetic environment, right? You want to put up all these cell phone towers? I'm just going to make more and more orgonite and put them next to every single one. And the more that they, basically encourage this electrosmog and put up this grid, right? We're just going to expand the orgone grid, and we're going to keep the ether flowing, right? So that even when they, electrically, stimulate the environment, we can still keep that environment flowing, right? What is dangerous is when they roll this stuff out and then it's a stagnant, electrically stimulated environment, right? So then it's like, you know, it's you're not just, you're sitting inside of a microwave and, like, inside of a bigger box, right? At least when we get the ether moving, it's like, there's a fan blowing, right? So it's like, if you're like you're running your engine in your garage, right? You're running your car engine in your garage. Eventually it's just going to fill up and kill you, right? That smog is just going to fill up the garage and you'll die from carbon monoxide, right? And that's like a stagnant etheric environment where there's no orgone, right? Where it's literally all just sitting there. If we can actually organize our environment, right? It's like opening the garage door, at least, when we actually start to create a society without all this electrosmog, then we'll be turning the engine off and, basically moving to that singularity point where technology and nature are literally, the same technology and can work totally seamlessly. It's not this overlay. They will be fused, right? And that scares some people, but it's also just the inexorable destiny of life and consciousness. And that's, again, this whole drama that this character known as God has scripted out, right? But again, it's a free-for-all. We're all individual aspects of that divinity meeting each other and having experiences and creating adventures for ourselves, right? So it's like, the AI or the cabal or the control grid, it's like their end game is just to so fully inundate humans in technology that the humans just change to the grid, right? And I realized that a long time ago. And I would say that my great power and my great attitude boosting, adjustment was that I am connected to the people and by extension to the grid. And that if I can control myself, I can spread that frequency to other people. And eventually the grid will have no choice but to adapt to the people who have changed, because the whole point of the control grid is premised on the assumption that people are malleable to the grid, right? My revolution is premised on the assumption that the grid is malleable to people, right? And that ultimately, as long as we retain that choice, that seat of the soul, deep, deep core aspect of self, where we always have the choice to say yes or no, and no one can take that away from us. They can influence us. They've been influencing us, other humans have, for a long, long time. They build these big buildings, right? They have this big language, right, that doesn't really mean anything, right? It's all just designed to impress people and, manipulate them into thinking that the authority should be believed, right? Sometimes the authority should be believed, but mostly it's all just an illusion, right? But we always possess the choice to say, no, that's not who I am. That's not what I'm going to do, because I get to decide. And that's what Jesus did 2,000 years ago. He was like, no, I am not a son of the Roman Empire. I am not subject to these arcane rulings of these old priests and their, crazy, compromising, materialistic religion. They're changing money in the temple, right? They're sacrificing animals, like, they're having sex with each other's nieces and nephews and shit. It's like, what the hell's going on? And that's what it is. There's these periodic moments in history when we get to basically reevaluate the whole situation. And, if somebody's brave enough and smart enough and in tune enough, they can basically become an avatar, and they can basically change the entire script and be remembered for, the entire age, and be basically the archetype for the human going forward. And I personally believe that we're at one of those juncture points. And, just like back then, there probably was there was all these different people working together, and Jesus was just like kind of the example of that whole psychic, emotional, human revolution. And similarly, now it's happening all over the world, and it's just so beautiful to see it proceed, right? The archetype of the hero. And I'm just very happy to be able to pass on that energetic vibration to a new human being, right? Not for them to learn the dead, meaningless, Einsteinian relativity, moral relativism, universe where we're just a tiny speck of dust and there's nothing out there, it's and not necessarily being locked into the fundamentalist religious program either, right? But just to have a fresh start, and to teach responsibility, and to teach enjoyment of life, and to have the toolbox to do that, right? To know what food does to the body, to know what this electrosmog is, to know how technology works, to know how money works, to know how language works and how humans and their emotions work, and to be able to live in this world and be able to get some modicum of what you desire without, harming other people, and to just make life more of a fun experience. I'm extremely excited to participate that, and to be known as Dada or Papa or whatever. And I'm not going to let this kid down. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl, by the way. We're not going to do an ultrasound unless it's medically necessary. There's actually been no long-term studies on ultrasounds. It's pretty bizarre how much it's become just like kind of a cultural fascination. Now they got 4D ultrasounds. Even the doctors are like, please don't do that. Like, that's bad. And, it's like what people do to their child with the ultrasound, and especially things like the 4D, right? It's out here, it's 5G. In there, it's 4D, right? And they just got all these technological beams firing at life, right? Trying to figure out something more. But at a certain point, what's there to know? All you can ever know is yourself. Know thyself. Temet noske, as the oracle said. And, yeah. I don't know if there's necessarily any English statement that can go beyond that sort of point of wisdom. Just know thyself, because if you know yourself, you'll know everything, because you're connected to everything. So I just wanted to come in and share that today. I hope you all are well, and just remember that life is a miracle, and that it's just it's a beautiful place, and despite all the shenanigans, there's always that seed that can grow to become infinite potential. And so it does, every damn day. Much love to you guys. Cheers.
Ah.